Hey guys, it's Pete from Pete from Anxiety here. Welcome into today's episode. I appreciate y'all being here so much. Let's talk about a few things real quick. The Pete vs. Anxiety Team Anxiety Facebook group. Are you a part of it? You're not? What are you waiting for? The link's down here in the description down below, or go to Facebook and search Pete vs. Anxiety. Then look for the Team Anxiety team page and join it today. Why not? You can join and help. It'll be great. Yeah, like right now. Hurry up. Stop what you're doing. Pause this video. Go do it right now. But anyways, let's also talk about the Pete vs. Anxiety YouTube page. If you're here right now, you're probably following it most likely. If not, head on over there, subscribe, be sure to like and comment on the videos and let me know, because all that stuff really helps, guys. I really appreciate it. And help me break the stigma that mental health is talked about enough. But anyways, guys, let's get into today's episode. I'll have a great one. Thank you so much again. And as I always say, don't ask how your day is. Ask how your mental health is today.
Guys, welcome to another exciting episode of Pete vs. Anxiety. My guest today is a globally respected spirit guide, mentor, advocate for the conscious living. Through her transformative readings and one-on-one mentorship programs, live events, and online courses, my guest empowers individuals to find inner harmony, unlock their psychic gifts, and connect the universe energies around them. Please welcome Gloria Battini.
Hello, hi.
How are you doing so much? I'm so glad you're here.
I'm great. How are you today?
Good. Well, why don't you tell me a little more about yourself? How did you get into the whole thing? You know, spirits guide and all that other great stuff.
Yeah.
Is it something that just kind of hits you one day?
Well, you know what? I feel it was always underneath the surface. You know, it was always underneath there. It was always something that was part of me. But for many reasons, I didn't open up to it until about now 6 or 7 years ago, pretty much. Six, I would say 6 years ago. And I feel because I had to go through a whole healing journey first, I didn't have space, you know, in my head or in my heart. I didn't have space. I had so much healing to do, so much to overcome. But I was very, very open as a child. Very, very open, very, very sensitive as a child. And I resonated with all these things. And then for a big chunk of my life, it all stopped. And then once I sorted that, I had space again. So, yeah.
Well, it makes sense, though. I mean, it's an interesting subject to get into, though. I mean, you know, you're a medium as well, correct?
Yes.
So how does that work? You know, give me a little rundown of how that even happened. Is it like one day something just spoke to you and you weren't sure what it was, and then you finally figured out that it was actually something trying to connect to you?
No, it wasn't like that. I always felt like I wasn't alone. Wherever I am, I 100% know that I'm not alone all the time. I can sense it, you know, even as a child, I could sense it that I wasn't alone. I didn't know what it was, obviously, because I didn't even have the words probably to describe it as a little child, you know.
Yeah.
But then as you go through the usual, you know, losing the grandparents, unfortunately, they are the first ones to go. And I always felt like they weren't actually gone. Like I felt that their body, oh, sorry for the mic. I'm Italian. I talk with my hands. I'm sorry. So I always felt like, I felt that their body wasn't there, but I didn't sense them completely gone. I really didn't. And so as I grew up, I felt, okay, so this is, that was just a normal thing. You know, they didn't necessarily talk to me. I didn't necessarily like receive messages or anything like that, but I always felt like I wasn't alone and they were always around. Sometimes I felt a presence around, but I didn't necessarily know who it was, even though I knew it wasn't somebody that I knew, for example. But I always had that feeling, that sensation. And then a few years ago, I was starting my spiritual journey, and I was talking to a spiritual coach that I was working with at the time. And I just externalized this. And she said, well, you should look into that. You know, if it comes naturally, if you feel that naturally, you should look into that. But I genuinely thought that that's how everyone felt. Never occurred to me that it could be different. You know, I genuinely thought, oh, isn't this normal for everyone? And she's like, no, actually, it's not. You should look into it. And then I opened up to it a little bit more. And I was doing, my business was at a different place at the time. I was a life coach. And I was being interviewed for a podcast by somebody who was a medium.
Oh,
And
okay, okay.
yeah, and she said, you have so much around you. And I said, I know. I can sense it. Like, I can feel them. I know that they're here. And again, like, she pushed me. She was like, no, you should definitely look into it, definitely work with someone. And so shortly after that, I chose to do a one-on-one intensive psychic training, like
Yeah.
proper training. And that gave me certain techniques to understand the energies that I was feeling. And then
Yeah,
I
see,
started,
I figured it was energy you were feeling around you, basically. If they're not
yeah,
giving you a message, it's that feeling of that something's there, you know,
yeah,
because I've had that feeling before too when I was younger, and I discovered that I'm sensitive to energy when I was interviewing an energy alchemist, and it's the same thing. We were doing an interview just like this, and
yeah,
she was telling me about it, and I was like, you know, I kept having this feeling like something's there. I couldn't explain what it was, but it was like something was just, it was just something I felt around me. It's kind of like a staticky kind of feeling is to me is what it was, you know, for me. And it was just like, I knew it's something, but I couldn't tell what it was, you know, and she was like, you know, that's energy you're feeling. And I'm like, I never even thought about it, you know, but it was always weird to me, but it made sense to her when I explained it to her, kind of like you were having the same connection with the medium you were interviewing with.
yeah,
And they
yeah,
were, you know, she's like, you know, and then she opened my eyes to this. So then I started really digging into it and I started learning so many things. And you know, the funny thing is the universe kept sending me more energy healers and things like that, and Reiki masters and all these things. And I was like, at first, I didn't see the signs of what was going on. But when me and her had a conversation, it was just like something she unlocked in my brain was like, yeah, you know, something she said clicked. And I was just like, oh, that's what that feeling was. Cause I described it to her. It's like, hey, let me tell you about something. And I told her about it. And it didn't feel so weird when she was like, oh, yeah, that's what you're feeling. And I'm like, okay, well, this makes a lot of sense now.
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. And then when you do the actual training, all you learn is you're not really, actually, when you do the training, because now I teach, I'm at the level that I teach now. When you do the training, you're not even learning anything new.
Yeah.
Like, everything is already inside of you. All you're learning is techniques. You're
Yeah.
just learning techniques to be able to actually read the energies that you're already sensing. But you're just using something that's already inside of you. You know, you're just being given more instructions, if you want, you know, like
Yeah.
a little bit of an instruction manual to sort through it. And then that's how it was for me. And then when I've done that, I've learned very, very quickly, and I straight away I was like, okay, so now I can get messages. Now I can actually. And now when I do mediumship, we have like full on conversations,
Well,
which is yeah.
that's so cool though. I mean, it's like, is it just random spirits that come and talk to you, or is it people that you interact with and you're like, hey, someone wants to say something to you, you know? And you mean, because you
Yeah.
know how you see it's televised, it's a little different. And you're only the second medium I've actually had on the show. I had another one. She was from the UK. She had
Okay.
told us that she had picked up something all the way across the pond in Canada, that she knew where the person was. She said, I could see from where they were sitting, where the person's body was. Apparently, this person unfortunately had passed, and they were looking for this person. And she located the missing persons from being all the way over there. And I
Yeah.
was like, dude, that is so cool. And then me and her got into a conversation about past lives. And I was like, man, how do I find out what I was in a past life? And she said that, what did she tell me? She said that I myself, she had the feeling that I was always the person in the back scene that was never heard, but now I'm being heard now in this life, you know.
Okay.
And it was weird because it's like how I felt, because I have a big family, 7 siblings, everything like that. I was the middle child. I never really felt like I was being heard, but now I'm doing this podcast. Now everybody's hearing me now, and they're all like, "Oh, what? You sound so intelligent now." I'm like, "What do you mean, dude? Like you never even listened to me before. Now all of a sudden you're hearing me actually I have collective thoughts for you. Now all of a sudden I'm so smart, but it's because you never
Yeah.
listened to me in the first place."
Yeah. I actually have an interesting take on past lives, if you
Go right
want.
ahead. Yeah, definitely. Go ahead. I love this
Um,
conversation.
it's I really don't believe that they're past at
Yeah.
all. I really don't believe that they're past. I think we call them past lives because from where we are here on this earth,
Yeah.
we have the concept of time. And so we have to we describe everything through the concept of time. So because it
Okay.
isn't
Makes
the
sense.
life that we're right, it isn't the life that we're living with
Yeah.
this body now, so we call it past life. But actually, at an energetic level, if you think about it, everything is happening all at once.
Yeah.
So all of those past lives that we called past lives, it's just another experience that our soul is having at an energetic level somewhere else. but
Yeah.
it's I really truly feel them all happening at once. And I think that once we start perceiving ourselves this way, perceiving ourselves not as just this physical body here, but actually our own multidimensionality, let's say, I think that we really expand what we can do with this life. And I think we live it, we show up for it in a very different way, in a much more intentional way. And I think that certain things, at least in my experience, certain things that used to bother us are not going to bother us anymore, because you're just seeing it in a different way. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I think you're right though. It makes sense though, because you think about it, if you're not looking from the same perspective of time, time doesn't have any sense in what you're explaining is basically happening, which makes sense because then you're altering the idea of what people are looking at, but it's really opening our minds to everything else. So how do we reach that potential though? Do you have any suggestions of anybody that's maybe interested in trying to look for things from a different perspective?
Absolutely, yeah. So I suggest I always start from intuition. I
Hmm.
always start from intuition. A lot of the work that I do is intended to help people come home to themselves.
Okay.
And when I say help people come home to themselves, it means for them to be able to live at their most authentic. It
Yep.
means like without any conditioning. It means having overcome whatever traumas or whatever, things the past things have influenced them in the past, in this life, overcoming all of this, being able to free themselves completely and to show up at their most authentic. And as we do this, we come face to face with our intuition, which is our psychic abilities. Is the same thing, essentially. It's another way to say psychic. It's
Yeah.
intuitive. It's the same thing, right? And because we all are it's not a gift. It really is not a gift. And I would honestly, if there is one thing that I want, actually there's two things that I want everybody to know, and one of them is this: that psychic abilities aren't a gift. They belong, we all have them. We're all born with an intuition. There isn't a person on the planet that is born without an intuition. It's
Yeah.
impossible. It doesn't work like that. What happens is that some people are, for different reasons, are more connected than others. And I think that the path towards coming home to ourselves has a lot to do with connecting with our own intuition. And when we do that, when we fully connect with who we are, with our authenticity, with our intuition, then we see ourselves in a different way. We see life in a different way. We see the world in a different way. And I really think that that's the path towards a new earth, if you want, a new way of living. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. You think about it, because you're changing the way people look at things in general. I mean, because then it's going to open their eye to something else. And a lot of
Yeah.
people are scared about that change, though. A lot of people kind of would say it's hogwash and things like that, but explain it. I mean, ever since I learned what I did, I've looked at things from a different perspective, and I've noticed different things about myself too. It's like when I have really intense conversations, like I've had a couple that were back to back, and it was just like we just got full and deep conversations about things. Like I feel drained, but
Yeah.
it's because I took on so much. I got to recharge afterwards, and it's like, whoa, it's like all of a sudden I just feel really drained, but I feel satisfied because the conversations were great. Like we got
Mhm.
into an hour-long conversation about negative self-talk with one of my guests, and she was talking about on the neurodivergent side, and we were just going back and forth. It's like I clicked into something else, and we were just going back and forth the whole time, and the
Yeah.
conversation never stopped. We were just going for like an hour straight, and it was
Yeah.
so great. And it's always fascinating when people talk about spiritual, and then they talk about mediums, and I'm always fascinated because I'm like, this is so cool, because it's like, people from the other side are talking to you, and everybody else will say, oh, it's not real. Then explain some of these things that happen though. Like,
Yeah.
all these movies about different things that are happening. It's like, then tell me how these aren't real. Like stigmata was a real thing. There was a guy in Brazil that actually had that same thing happen. He had the same wounds Jesus did because he was so spiritual, but he
Yeah.
didn't die from them, and nothing they did was heal him, but he wasn't any different effectively, and people are going to say, well, that's not real. Okay, then explain that to me. Go ahead and explain it to me. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, it's like
Yeah.
everybody wants the evidence, but when you ask for the evidence back, then you're the one that's the asshole in the proverbial conversation, because you're asking for them to prove their point. And then it's like, oh, no, God, no. And they can never prove it. It's always just, they want to call everything fake because they don't believe it. It's like, I know you probably felt it at one point or another. Something's reached out and touched you, and gave you the indication that something's going on. But people are just so scared of things like that because they don't understand what it is. So instantly we got to deflect. We can't have that. No, can't do that kind of thing,
Yeah, but it's all part of conditioning, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's all part of conditioning. And I really truly believe that there's a lot of it was done intentionally, because if you take 8 billion people on the planet and you connect them all to who they are, you make them feel at home within themselves, you make them live at their most authentic, you make them feel connected with their intuition, you make them aware and fully connected to their whole potential, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody's going to lose out, isn't it?
Right, exactly.
Somebody's going to lose out, right? It is very convenient.
Convenient. So Gloria, I've been reading your profile. I'm wondering what this is that keeps showing up. It's the Akashic records. What exactly is that? Because it keeps showing up for me.
Yeah, the Akashic records. Yes.
Yeah, you're not the first person this showed up in their profile, by the way. So that's why I'm so fascinated, because I'm like, what is that exactly?
Yeah. So we're talking energetic level here.
Oh, okay.
But it's essentially the archive of everything that exists.
Oh, okay.
That is like the very, that's a very like one line way of describing it. When you access somebody's Akashic records or the Akashic records, it's just a deeper level of reading their energy.
Okay.
Yeah. So you have access to things like, well, a lot more of their past lives, but you can also see their karma, their karmic cycles. You can see their soul contracts. You can see the origin of certain relationships. You can see like a level deeper into a person's energy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And now I'm talking to you in the sense of like a person, but there's information about everything in the records.
Yeah, that's why I'm so interested, because it keeps showing up. Like a lot of people's profiles have it. I'm just like, what is that exactly? But it makes sense. So let's once again, things that keep falling into my path are things that have to do with energy of some sort. Ever since that conversation, it's just opened it up to that. And I've had some great conversations. So it's just like, to me, it's no longer weird. It's like, okay, the universe is saying something to me, because that kept showing up too in there. And I was just like, man, I wonder what that is, because it kept popping up for me. I was like, hey, this has got to be something interesting. I got to ask what the heck that is. So that's so interesting though. But how does one, like, how do we find that though? Is it open to everybody to see?
You train. So it is another, they're all techniques.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
They're all techniques that you can utilize to read energy. They're all different ways to read energy. So there are techniques, like, for example, if we talk mediumship, talking to the dead, there are certain techniques that you utilize to read that kind of energy.
Oh, okay.
Then you can do energy healing for someone. And in that case, you will learn the energy system of the body and the energy field. Right. So you would look into somebody's chakras, the energy point inside of the body. And that's another technique, but you're reading the energy that it's in specifically in that place. And the Akashic records is another technique to just read another level of energy. So when you think about energy, it's very vast. It's very vast. Okay, exactly. So if you think about that, us ourselves are made of energy. Every single thing that you actually see with your naked eye is made of energy. It's not even, it appears solid, but it's not. It's like, it's actually all atoms, all vibrating. It's like all energy responding to each other, right? And imagine that in between the layer of the stuff that you can see with the naked eye, there is so much more.
Oh, I believe it. Oh, I have a good feeling there is.
There is so much more that the eye doesn't pick up on. But that's when our intuition comes in, because our intuition is our sight beyond the naked eye. Okay. So our intuition is made up of feelings, sensations in our body. is made up of sounds that we pick up, but they are not actually here, if that makes sense. Like, you hear like words or sounds or music or stuff like that,
Yeah.
but they're not actually in your immediate environment. So our intuition allows us to infiltrate in this whole like web of energy that we're surrounded by and we can't see, right? So our intuition allows us to do that. The techniques that you can learn, so when you do proper psychic trainings, the techniques allow you to intentionally utilize your intuition in a certain way so you can access that specific type of energy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Yeah, no, I'm following you 100%. The part two, I want to backtrack a little bit too, is where you said that, the feelings, like I have these feelings when I meet people. And it's always been interesting. It was always weird to everybody else if I explained it to them, but you'd probably get this. But I like when I get close to people, I can tell whether or not I like them or not within the first 5 seconds of meeting somebody. Like I can tell if I don't like them because they'll give off some kind of vibration that I don't like. Like it's just a feeling I know. And they don't have to really say too many things. It's just like you feel them come by and you're just reading them and everything else, and I'm constantly scanning the room for people, and when people come up, I'm constantly scanning their body, their different emotions and different things they do, little ticks they have. And I'm always feeling them out because I can tell when I don't like certain people because like just for whatever reason, it's like, I just don't like this person. I can't tell you why. I just don't like them. And it's hard to explain to anybody that doesn't get that point, and it's like, it makes sense to me now. Like I said, ever since, I've unlocked that conversation unlocked a lot more thought process to me. And I start looking more into it and things like that. I can read a lot of people across the room, their energy wise too. And I can tell which people I don't like and which people I do like, because like, I get real like a sick feeling when I get close to somebody I really don't like. It's like, it's just an uncomfortable feeling. And I know I don't like them for a certain reason. I just couldn't tell somebody that, like you're trying to explain it. Most people are like, what does that mean? I'm like, I just got a feeling I don't like them. And they're like, why don't you like them? Like, you just don't get it. Like, if I were to try to explain them to somebody, they just wouldn't get it. But you understand what I mean. When you're like, you get that feeling, and it's like you're reading people in the room. And I've always thought it was an interesting thing I could do. And I never really understood it until that conversation. Then it made a lot more sense. And it's like, okay, well, I'm sensing their energy that I don't like about them. And or I can sense people's emotions too. Like, people I'm around, if they're upset, like they don't have to say anything. I could just read it off them and I could just see it. I always thought it was an interesting thing I could do. Never could explain it to anybody, but now it makes more sense. Now I've gone down the energy path and I've started looking at a lot of stuff and interviewing different people that do these different kind of things. And it's so interesting to me because it's like, I've always had this ability. I never realized I could do it. And now it makes a lot more sense to me. Now I'm a little more in tune to everything, being very empathic. I can feel everybody's emotions around me. Like I can read it right across the room. And you don't have to say more than 2 words to me. I can usually tell if something's wrong because I can pick up on it instantly. Basically, if somebody says something, I can read the tone of the voice and everything else. And I always thought it was an interesting thing because I just I couldn't explain it to people. But but now it makes more sense that I'm dug into it a little more. And I've had more of these great conversations with people about things because it makes sense now, because now it all kind of starts clicking, because it's like now I start identifying these things and it makes me laugh because I'm just like, now I get it. Like now I don't feel like such a weird person about it, And my wife and I, when we first met, she's big in energy beforehand. She kind of got me onto the path of it a little bit at first. She's talking about different crystals have different properties and these different stones and things like that, and how, you're attracted to certain stones and things like that. Like tiger's eye was always one I was always attracted to because it was the first thing she gave me. And at first I didn't think anything of it, of course, because this is prior to this podcast when we met. And, she gave me a tiger's eye, but for some reason I wouldn't let it go. Like if it wasn't in my possession, I'd freak out because I just had a strange connection to it. And, and she got me a big one and then got me a couple other ones and got me like, bracelets and things like that. For whatever reason, I was drawn to that stone because it's the first thing she gave me. And I could never really explain it, to anybody, but now it makes sense because I'm drawn to its energy that it was giving off, Yeah. And if it's not in my pocket, I'd start freaking out because like I'd carry it everywhere with me. It just didn't feel right not having it with me for whatever reason, And at first I didn't think anything of it. I was I was one of the naysayers originally, but now it makes a lot of sense. Now I've learned these conversations and these different things that have turned my thought process to another way. Now it makes more sense. And she just laughs at me because she's like, I tried to tell you about this originally. And tarot cards were an interesting one too. Gloria, it's one that really blew my mind. It's like she did a tarot card reading for me when we were dating. I couldn't tell you how close this thing was. She was maybe a hair off of what my thought process was in that moment. And I was just like, it was so mind blowing to me because I was just like, whoa, hold on. Are you reading my thoughts? You know, and Catherine was the same way. Catherine did that to me too. She was like, she does, God, what are they? She does these weekly readings for me. Okay. So
Uh-huh.
one of them, she pinpointed exactly what I was doing the moment I'm listening to this. You know, she's responding to me what the card meant. And I was like, damn, I feel called out now because she goes, well, you need to stop drinking those C4s and everything. Mind you, I've never told her that I was drinking these things. I'm holding one in my hand as I'm listening to her respond. It sent me this message. Oh, this is what the card is saying. I'm like, God damn, am I getting called out here? This is pretty messed up.
Yeah, but you see, tarot is another thing. This is amazing. Thank you for mentioning these things because there's so many misconceptions around this kind of
I
stuff,
believe it too,
you
because
know?
when we were
There's so
younger,
much.
we didn't understand the power of what those cards hold, man. And then now
Yeah.
my wife being into those kind of things, she was telling me the meaning behind every card and things like that. And it was so fascinating to understand because she's like, oh, the different positions make difference and everything else makes sense. And I'm just like, dude, this is so interesting to me. I don't know why, but it makes sense now. Now down the road, I've had these conversations and found these things out. That's why it was so interesting to me. But the fact that they were so on the point without her even having to say a single word, that was it. Mind blew me right there. I was like, whoa.
Yeah. Because you see, so tarot is another, it's not a technique, but it's a tool. Tarot is a tool to read energy, right? So everything, when you do a reading for some, you don't have to be in the same room as someone in order to connect with their energy, right? You can do that from wherever you are in the world, doesn't matter. What matters is the intention. Okay. So when you put intention into a certain reading, so if I take out the cards and do a reading for you, I'm setting the intention that this reading is for you. And if you ask me a specific question, that's the intention again, right? That's another layer of intention. That's another layer. And intention, you have to look at intention as little waves, right, of energy. That's what sets the tone of what we're going to do. And your energy responds to the intention, as well as the techniques and the tools that we're using. They're all responding to the energy, and that's how it all becomes entangled, right? It all becomes entangled together. That's why readings resonate. Even when I do a weekly reading. I'm a teacher on an app that's called Insight Timer. And I do a weekly tarot reading for the collective every Monday. It resonates with everyone, regardless of however many people are in the room.
To me, it was crazy at first when Catherine started doing them for me, but she was hitting home with a lot of them too. Or she'd randomly message me and go, "Listen, hey, the cards are saying this. You know, you need to change something," or some kind of message they had for me, and I was just like, "Dude, this is just really, this is insane. Like these are like spot on."
Yeah, absolutely.
I was so fascinated more by every time it happened, though, too. She would do it, and I was just like, this is crazy. Like I said, the one saying I needed rest, I was like, dude, I was exhausted. The same day I got that card, she's like, oh, yeah, you need to rest right now. You need to take some time. You need to rest. You need to take care of yourself. And I was like, damn, dude, I felt so called out. But I'm like, damn, I'm like, this is crazy. This was crazy to most people. To me, it was just like, oh, I'm getting called out here now.
Yeah. Can I raise your awareness on something?
Yeah, definitely. Go ahead, please.
So what you were describing earlier when you said, I can sense somebody's energies and stuff.
Yeah.
That's your intuition, right? Your intuition works through your body. So when you come across someone, you can sense whether you like them or not, or whether you click with them or not, because your intuition, because you're connected to it, your intuition is telling you, oh, this person, ? This person, red flag, this person, green, talk to them as long as you want, right? Because you're connected to your intuition. Now, that we can understand, right? Even years ago, maybe things are starting to open up a little bit more now, but if a little while ago I would have said to you, oh, that's because you're psychic, what would have been your reaction?
I don't think I'd believe it, honestly. But I mean, but I think I'd have an open-minded question. I think if you would have told me that earlier on before, I think I would have been. Now I think my opinion more is like I wouldn't turn it away, honestly, because it would make sense how I could read a lot of that stuff and a lot of those feelings I get in those weird sense. Like I feel like somebody's watching me, but nobody's there kind of thing. And then that's what happened when I was 18. Like I'd always had this feeling like something was watching me or something was there with me. And like I'd panic because it was just a weird feeling. It would happen, tingle. It's like a tingling sensation, like something was trying to talk to me. And then I would just dart to another room because a lot of time I spent a lot of time by myself, And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I'd be sitting there, I'm just like sitting on the computer just like now, and all of a sudden I hear something in the distance, like a voice talking to me. And I'm looking around like there ain't nobody in the house. It's just me. I'm looking around like, hello, somebody, hello. I start shouting out hello because I didn't know what else to do. It's your normal reaction. But
Yeah.
it was weird because something was talking to me from somewhere in the house. And I was by myself. There's nobody there. Lights are off. I'm in the room doing something. I have my door open. I can hear into the hallway, and that's where it came from, the hallway. And I was just like, whoa, what is that? And it was strange because it's like nobody else is in the house with me, but something was talking to me.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. Because you're awakened to your own intuition.
Yeah.
Right. So that's because we're, as I said at the beginning, we're all psychic. We can all do these things. Right. The thing is that some of us at birth are more connected than others for different reasons. Yeah, for different reasons, because obviously we're all completely different. There's 8 billion peoples and not 2 of us are identical. We're all very, very unique. So for different reasons, some of us from a young age are more connected, and some of us kind of like discover it later, and some of us never actually connect at all. Right. But it doesn't mean that it's not there.
Yeah.
We can all awaken it. And I am trying to get more people to understand that none of this is a gift, because I really truly believe that the whole agenda, psychics are people with certain gifts. I really think that it's hurting everybody's potential, because it's making people think that, oh, I cannot possibly be that.
Yeah, exactly.
Because people don't believe in themselves, right? They don't believe in themselves enough, or because maybe they have a negative connotation of psychics, all of that. And I really, really think that it was a very intentional move to everything that's been created around psychic abilities, around psychics, and around being connected, around spirits. I really think that it was a very, very intentional move, because I'm telling you, if we all opened up to how simple it all is, I'm telling you, we would be living in a completely different world. We really would. We really, really would.
No, I agree. I think it would change a lot of people's perspective, but I think at the same time you'll have those people that are scared of what they'll find out. And I think that's the problem. I think people shouldn't look at it being scared. They should be more curious about what it is they can find out. That curiosity is what drives a lot of people to find these things, because they're like, well, I want to know more. Well, okay, let's go look and see what more we can find. Just like me, I'm like, I want to know more. So now I'm finding more. I'm inviting more people to come talk about these things, because the conversation just gets more interesting, because I understand what they're talking about. And it's not so much like it's people say it's like speaking Greek to people. It's like, I understand what you're saying. I love it though. Like I said, it makes plenty of sense to me. And there was a woman I interviewed named Sherry Ann Boyle that was talking about this entity called Spirit that helped her write like 11 books. And in the interview, she's reading something to me, and I can't explain it to you, but I could tell you what it was like. Everything around me didn't exist after she started reading whatever it was. And I almost feel like it was Spirit talking to me, because how else do you explain what was happening? Nothing around me. I couldn't hear a single thing. Like everything went completely quiet. Like I was so hyper focused, and when I'm interviewing with her, I just completely zone out a little bit. But I'm focused on what she is saying exactly, and then afterwards she just smiles, like she knew what happened, and she could just see the look in my eyes. And then I go into this like 20-minute rant about what happened, and it was explained, and she just started smiling because she knew what's going on. I was like, this is just. It was interesting, and there was another woman I interviewed named Leslie Turner. She actually did. She did the cards on the actual, when we were interviewing. She said, oh, look, a card fell out. And I think that's so cool, because it's like, all right, well, that one applies to me, and what she was talking about, and it was just like, I'm more fascinated every time I meet somebody new that is into these different areas and things like that, because it's always interesting to hear everybody's opinion about things, especially when it comes to, mediums and spiritual guides, because there's something there talking to you at all times. I just think people don't want to hear it because they think that they're crazy, or it's watch too much TV, so now I think this thing's gonna take me over, kind of thing. It doesn't always work like that.
By the way, if there's anybody out there listening that is afraid of whatever could come from Spirit, let me put you at ease for a second here. There is nothing in the spirit world that can harm you more than something in the physical world.
Yeah.
Okay. There is nothing, let me tell you, the spirit world is fine. Even if you come across some like little trickster spirits every now and then, it is in no way scarier than the physical world. Absolutely not.
Well, people are watching Ghost Adventures and all these other crazy things, talking about all these other wild, you know what I mean? People over dramatize it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then what is the whole thing with the Annabelle doll was the recent thing where they're moving that doll. I'm like, I don't know why y'all are messing with shit you don't understand. I don't get it. Like, why do we have to move it? Leave her where she was. She was just fine,
but
and
but all of that, it's a lot of entertainment. We
yeah,
have to understand that there's a difference. A lot of stuff has become the news have become entertainment.
oh
They're
god,
not
it
even the
is.
news
You're right.
anymore,
You're
right?
right.
Sports are not even sports anymore. Sometimes they are. It's all part of entertainment.
Yeah,
So when we
true.
see those shows and that sort of stuff, we have to understand that that's for entertainment purposes. When you actually work with a psychic or with a medium, it's not going to be spooky. It really isn't. It is just a very normal conversation. But you see, we've received so much conditioning that, look, we are not opening ourselves up because of that conditioning. And
Yeah,
then I'm telling you, that's very convenient to a lot of people. That's
right.
very
Yeah.
convenient. Yeah.
No, no, you're right. You're hitting it right on the head. And I think it's a lot of these movies and everything else people watch, and everything just everybody likes, always over exaggerates on a lot of the stuff, when it's like, people don't realize like how little it actually is like that, and it's like, oh, movies are great, TV shows are great, but a lot of them, they're really just seeking those kind of like ghost adventures. I guarantee most of that stuff staged. There's no way if they're sending somebody into these places, oh, well, there's a huge spiritual presence in here. It's like, yeah, but you're going to go in there anyways. But okay, yeah, that makes all the sense in the world. They're going to send you in there
Yeah.
unprotected of some sort to something that's in there. You're going to find something with like the likelihood something's going to attach to you and leave. We don't know. And then that's my next question. Though, is like when people see these things where these guys like go into these places that are supposedly haunted, like, is there not a worry for some of them that something may attach and come back with them?
Yeah, so this is an interesting side of things. This is a very interesting side of things. As a psychic or as a medium, whatever, as an intuitive, as somebody that works with spirit and with energy, you have to be incredibly diligent with your own energy.
Yeah.
With clearing your own energy, with putting loads of like energetic protection around you. And if you were to choose to work with a psychic, please do your research. Please just follow them for a little bit, see how they show up. You want to make sure that they are looking after themselves, because otherwise they're going to be channeling all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And it's draining for them. This is a type of work that it's not supposed to be draining at all. It's a type of work that it's incredibly uplifting. It's a type of work that recharges you in many ways, but you have to be looking after yourself. Yeah. So yes, there is a risk if you're not being careful and you don't have boundaries and your energy is all over the place and you don't work on yourself and you don't look after yourself, you don't put protection, you don't cleanse your energy. Yeah, absolutely. Something can attach. Yeah. 100%.
And that's my biggest fear is these guys going in there. And, that's why my wife says she doesn't like me watching certain movies, because she's like, oh, something will attach from you. And she has this thing that she says that some of those movies that are really close to like real stories, she's like, you got to be careful because something may come through and attach to you. So she forbids me to watch certain movies in the house. Is that a real concern though? Is there something I really should be worried about, those kind of things?
I don't think so. I think that the only problem with movies is not necessarily, if they're from a real story, that's fine. There isn't. I don't believe that there's something from that story that can attach to you. No.
Okay.
I think that the only problem with anything that we watch is the energy in which it was created.
Oh, okay.
Right? So remember that a lot of the movies that are out there are serving a certain agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're all part of conditioning. It's all part of certain brainwashing at some level. And so whenever we go and watch anything, as again, like whether it's the news or sports or a movie, let's just be aware of that.
Yeah.
Let's be aware that there's a certain energy, and that everything that we're seeing, we are being incredibly suggested with things, right? So I would say that that's the main thing to be aware of when we watch movies.
Yeah, movies are great though, and some of them I think get a little too over exaggerated with things.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
like,
yeah.
and then what is it? The whole Miss Cleo thing in the '90s, where everybody started really. I think that's where the real disconnect from Psychics came. Right there was with that whole Miss Cleo thing. Well, call me on the phone right now, and it's like they're all like, "Oh, these are not real." It's like,
Yeah, yeah,
you're
yeah,
calling a TV psychic. Of course, it's not real, or something's fabricated in there. Let's look at. Let's
yeah,
do a little judgment on this one.
yeah.
And it's like all those other shows. What was it? There's another one about a medium. I can't remember which one. I think it's like somewhere on the East Coast, somewhere in New York. I think it was like Long Island Medium or something like that.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's
yeah,
like,
yeah. I mean,
it,
she's great though. She's really
yeah,
good. She
no,
actually is really good. Yeah.
yeah, what I'm saying? Like, there's like shows like that. It's like they're good ones like that. But then there's Ghost Adventures where you got this guy going into these crazy places. Oh, going to these most haunted places ever. I'm like, dude, what qualifications do you have, man?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just curious. Well, that's great. I'm just curious too. Doesn't mean I go try to
Yeah.
talk to some other spirit of the other realm that I don't understand, or these people,
Yeah.
or was it the movie? My wife said the movie The Craft, when they were doing one of the spells or actual spells they were doing on the set, said that weird things were happening. I'm like, yeah, because you're playing with things you don't
You're
understand,
playing.
of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
you're playing.
It's like, of course they're
Mhm.
going to start bringing things out. They don't understand what they're
Mhm.
playing with, and then something comes, and they're like, oh, what do we do now? Like, it's not a person you can just get rid of. I'm like, you brought them here, like, or
Yeah.
what is it? Oh God, I'm trying to think. There's another one I'm trying to think of. Or Beetlejuice. Like Beetlejuice had like the whole thing where they're doing
Yeah.
the dance at the table and stuff. It's just like
Yeah.
y'all are doing a little too much of some of these things, man. It's like if
Yeah.
you really did some of those things, I think you're gonna find that you're gonna get them. You're gonna have somebody or the Ouija board. There you go. That's what I was thinking. The Ouija board. You know how that one came out and everybody's like, "Oh, I'm not moving it." The commercials.
There it is.
But you know what I'm saying? Like big people are playing around with it, like they don't realize
Yeah.
what they're doing. And
Hmm.
sometimes, I think sometimes honestly something came and talked to some of them for real, and a lot of them weren't sure what to do. They all thought it was just for a novelty. Oh, somebody else is moving it. Are you
Yeah,
sure though?
and you know what? It's scary that it's in the children's toys section.
Isn't it?
That's very scary. Yeah.
Well, what was it like? What was it? I think in the '90s when it came out. I don't remember exactly when it came out. But in the '90s it was big because they always had a commercial like, "I'm not touching it. I'm not touching
Yeah.
it." And it's
Yeah.
moving or
Yeah.
whatever. Like, I'm not moving it. You're moving it. That whole thing like that. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know,
Yeah.
guys. I
Yeah.
don't think we should be playing around with that.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's just, but the '90s were a different time, though. You got to think they got away with a lot more than they do now. Everything's so censored, I think, and it's just
Yeah.
it's interesting when you grew up then and now you see a lot of stuff, and these guys are like, oh, this is so sensitive. Like, you have no idea what you missed. Trust me, it was worse back
Yeah.
then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like what is it? Jack in the Box used to have these commercials, man. That some of them are just like, what the hell is wrong with you? They had one. I think I remember it was abortion. It was it's a miscarriage support group. The guy Jack was in the support group and he's trying to sell a sandwich out of there. It's like, what the hell is going on with these
Oh
commercials?
wow. Oh
Like I
wow.
say, like there was no
Yeah.
limits to the commercials of things they would do in the '90s or whatever. And then it was one of these gaming systems commercials. It was playing with finger guns or whatever, got banned in most countries because these guys were playing out in their own head that they're playing these war games or whatever, and they're all in the train
Uh-huh.
station. And things like that. It was just like people are like now are like, oh, well, a lot of this stuff is too rough. Let me show you some stuff in the '90s, man. We'll change your perspective real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah.
you, know?
So they used to get away with so much.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just like it's crazy because people are just like, well, this is too much for me to handle. You have no idea, man.
You have
Trust
no
me.
idea. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's so funny though because everybody always emphasized Miss Cleo and everything like that. Well, Miss Cleo will come read you. I'm like, oh god, here we go. Yeah, every time you saw it, you knew it was corny, and it was just like I think you just like you're making fun of something that is real, and I just like I don't think people realize how serious some of that stuff can get. When people are talking to people on the other side, it's like.
Yeah.
It's interesting though when people that start doing that and don't know anything about the other person. Then it's like, how are you going to deny that that's real at that point? It's like
Yeah.
I'm telling you things that I don't know about you. I just met you, and then I'm telling you these certain subjects. It's like it's hard to pass and say that those aren't really. I mean, someone really isn't talking to you.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Mediumship is a fascinating
It is
practice.
very fascinating.
It is a fascinating practice, and also incredibly healing for people who, grief journeys are really incredibly tough. Grief journeys
What
are
exactly is a grief journey, if you don't mind me asking you?
So grief journey is essentially, when you lose someone, and it's the grief that comes after that, right? So it's what stays with you after the person is gone, right?
Yeah.
And it is a very tough thing to experience, regardless of who you lose. There's a lot of people that are losing, grandparents, they lose a partner, they lose their parents, they lose their child, or their friends. It is a really, really horrible thing to go through in life, the loss of a person that you love, regardless of who they are, right? And what I'm trying to do in the world is to allow people to. Oh, there you go.
There we go. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you
Appreciate
so
that.
much.
We were trying to figure out what it was. So we were too
Thank
far,
you.
about 10 years off. It's okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy.
And what I'm trying to get people to understand is that the person on the other side isn't gone.
Yeah.
They are simply speaking a different language now.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean so much. Grief tells us that death is the end of everything.
Yeah.
How incredibly sad and tough and grim is that, to just think that that's it. There's nothing else. I cannot have a connection with this person anymore. Our souls, our energies are not connected. I'm sorry, but that's BS. No,
I agree. I agree with you on that 100%.
Right. And the reason why mediumship is incredibly healing is because us with a physical body are very lucky, because we can speak the spoken word, English or whatever other language, but we also have the opportunity, if we want to learn the language of energy. And when we learn the language of energy, we can actually still feel our loved ones around. And there's so many people that I've helped after they've lost someone, and they're saying, after we had our sessions, after we had it, I can actually feel that they're not gone. And I thought that I would never feel them around again. Obviously, the relationship isn't going to be exactly the same.
Yeah, clearly.
But you can grow through that. You can have a transformation. And I think that's why mediumship can be incredibly helpful and incredibly healing for a lot of people.
I agree. I agree, because I lost my godmother last month, okay? And I was interviewing somebody. It was a Monday. And I felt this feeling like something was wrong, but I couldn't tell you what it was, obviously, because it was just a sense of what it. And then a message had come through that I hadn't seen, because I was obviously interviewing, so I didn't see the message. And it was that my godmother had passed at midnight. And I was like, okay, well, that explains that all of a sudden, like certain like just like jolt I felt on, like this like real nasty feeling that came over me during the interview. I was like, man, something happened. And it was right around the time that message had come through. And it was like, oh man. And it hit hard, because I was really close with them, but I had ended up going back for the memorial, and I could just feel her presence there, because her urn was right there in front of me, and I touched it, I could feel it. And, ever since that conversation about energy and everything like that, it's like, I could see things from a different light. So I was there, I could feel her, and things like that. And then you walk closer to the urn, and the energy got even stronger. And then I touched it. And it was like, that was my way of saying, hey, that was my way of saying goodbye, but not saying goodbye completely. You know what I mean? And I felt a lot better afterwards. So after I touched it for a second and said, said my piece and things like that, it's like I felt that negative presence go away and things like that. But I could still feel her with me, and everything like that, because we were pretty much close. And she was like a second mom to me. And, and I it was great though, because I got to go, because I hadn't been back in years. And it was the only reason I gone back was to go see her, and things like that. And I hadn't seen her in the last few years, because, I hadn't had the time to go up there, but you could just tell she was deteriorating little by little, and it's hard to watch these things and hard to listen to these things. When you talk to her on the phone, she thinks all this time elapsed, but when I went and saw the urn and saw everybody else, it was just like it was a sense of closure for me, because like, we were so close and everything like that, but it was like she knew I got to say my goodbyes or whatever, but even though I didn't get to say goodbye before she passed away, unfortunately, but she's still with me though. I know she is. I still feel around me
Mm.
all the time and things like that, you
Mm.
know. And like I said, now they have a better, higher level or an understanding of energy around me and things like that. It's like I could feel her presence all the time. I feel like she's guiding me where I need to be and things like
Yeah.
that, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
it doesn't sound crazy to me at all anymore. Before, had you told me it's like 10 years ago, I probably would have looked at you like, okay, whatever, you know, this is
Thank you
now.
for being open to it. Thank
Well,
you for that.
well, you know, like I said, doing this show has opened my eyes to a lot of things. Like ever since the beginning to now, it's an evolution of me. You know, when I discover myself more than anything, and I start learning more about myself, and it's great because every conversation unlocks a new avenue of things I learn and different things I learn about myself, you know, and stuff like that. So it's great, you know, because I feel like the universe is putting things in my path for a reason. And it's not fated that we're here now having this conversation because it's just like it just felt right. Like when I look at these people that I look for me on the show, it's like I get a feeling. If I don't like the feeling they give, then it's like, well, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to take a
Mm.
pass. You know, things like that. Respectfully, I'm gonna have to pass or whatever else and things like that. So anybody I reach out to is because I got a strong feeling that, you know, I need to have a conversation with them. And lo and behold, here you are, because you were with my friend Kat before this, you know, like we were talking
Yeah.
about before we started hitting record. And she was like, "Oh yeah, you know," and I was like, you know, and me and Kat, we share people all the time. Always suggest other people, to other guests of other shows and things like that too. So, you know, it's nice to make these connections. Ever since I started this podcast, I've met so many new people and
I
things
bet.
like that. So it's great. It's been awesome, you know, and I make all these connections and I make these new friendships of people, and I start to learn more about myself. And like I said, every time she starts doing these readings, it just gets more interesting by the minute, because it's like, damn, these are so close to the subject, you know. Even like I said, she called me out and didn't even realize she was calling me. I was like, damn, all right, you're calling me out, man. It's not cool. Stop.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Pete, do you happen to be a Gemini by any chance?
no, I'm actually a Cancer.
Oh, really? So am I. Oh,
Yeah. So
nice.
I learned a lot about that too, you know, like star signs and things like that. And the
Yeah,
different
you might have. I have a really strong feeling that you have some heavy Gemini influence. You might have. What
my
day
daughter's
were?
actually Gemini.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What day of what day were you born?
I was born July 10th. She's born the 13th of June. So she's a Gemini.
She's full on Gemini. Yeah,
Mhm.
I was born on the 12th, but you might have maybe your Mercury is.
Yeah, see,
Is
I have
either,
to get all the information for that, because I was going to do one of those charts to see what my other
yeah,
signs were, you know, and things, because I was so
yeah,
fascinated when I heard that. I was like, oh yeah, what is all that stuff? I want to know.
yeah. I have a strong feeling that you have a very strong Mercury influence in your chart, which would be either Gemini placements or Virgo placements could
Oh,
be as
okay.
well. Yeah,
Well, I'll have
yeah.
to let you know what comes out from that when I get that
Yeah,
information, because I'm looking. I have to find what my time at what day what
yeah,
time I was born. I know that was very
yeah,
specific. So
yeah,
I was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
well, I'll get that, you know, and then I'll figure it out, and I'll have to let you share you with the results of what I get, because I was curious too, because I was looking into having that done, because I was like, man, now I want to know more, because like everybody's like, well, I'm this kind of son or this. I'm like, ooh, what is all that? You know, hold up,
Yeah,
back up. What are we
yeah, yeah,
talking
yeah.
about here?
Yeah, it's so interesting. Actually, when I work with people on a one-to-one basis, if they want to do a deeper journey in the coming home to self process, I always start from their astrology, because it's just, I truly believe that everybody should have it done when they're children. It's a roadmap. I
Yeah,
really believe it's a roadmap. It's like this little manual instruction instruction manual for life, really. And you do it once and you can pick it up and read it, consult it at different stages of life. And it's helped me immensely, even in this, in this journey. And I find that throughout the years, as I find myself, facing different challenges or at different stages of my growth or of my life, I focus on different parts of my chart
yeah.
and try to develop the different bits. And it's, again, another thing that is super, super interesting. It really is.
Oh, I
Really.
think it is. I 100%, because everybody starts talking about how there's certain things, and I'm just like, oh, now I need to know what I am now, because I want to join this
Yeah.
conversation. Damn it, I feel left out.
Yes, definitely.
But I think the star signs and the way the properties it presents in people are it's so interesting, because it's spot on. People are just like, oh, I'm whatever. They don't really think more than whatever their sign is. Oh, I'm like, have you really looked into that to see what they say your characteristics are? and how much they line up. Like my wife, she's a Scorpio, and a lot of the stuff she lines up with exactly what they say about Scorpios and things like that too.
Yeah.
And then these different signs. So I'm always wondering, and I've gotten good at guessing people's star signs too, Gloria. It was funny
Yeah.
because we have where I work at a convenience store. So like they had the lighters with all the star signs. So I was guessing what people's star signs were. And I think I missed only 1 out of the 5 people I guessed. I had everybody else's spot on for some reason. It's like I could just feel it. I'm like,
Amazing.
look at them, like, okay, this one's for some reason drawing attention. Let me guess. Are you this? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, get the fuck out. This is so cool. Like, all right, let's see what else I can get. And just keep going. But you notice the different characteristics of people. And people just like people that don't look into it deep enough, man. Y'all need to go check it out. Really do. Because
Yeah,
you'll find out some
absolutely.
interesting things about yourself. And like Gloria was saying, get one of the charts done too, because
Yeah.
you never know what other things could show up on there. And
Absolutely. And you know what? We all know our sun sign, essentially. That's where the sun, can for us is Cancer.
Mhm.
That's where the sun was at the time and the day of our birth, right? But we have all of the planets within us. We have all of the energies, and the way in which they're combined gives us our very unique
Mhm.
blueprint, and your unique blueprint, even if you have a twin, your own blueprint is not going to repeat for however many million years. I
Yeah.
think it's like 4 million years or something like that, because
Mhm.
the degrees always change. So even if you have a twin that you're born in exact same place at like 10 minutes difference, usually between
Yeah.
twins or something at least, there's still going to be a difference. So it
Yeah.
really is your own blueprint. It really is. And there's so much more to it than just the usual, star sign that we all talk about.
Yeah.
There's so many layers for all of the areas of life. It's honestly incredibly fascinating. Yeah.
Oh, I bet it is, because I'm curious now what my other stuff is, because now I feel left out of the
Yeah.
circle here, man. I
Yeah.
need to really get on finding that time, because
Yeah.
it's funny you say twins, because I have twins. My 2 younger daughters are twins, and they were about maybe 3 minutes apart. They were right after midnight, about 3 minutes apart. I knew that much because one was born for the other one. That's how we knew, how to identify them, because they look identical, but they weren't identical at first. But then they all have their own personalities, which is very present. One is very closed off, and the other one's very social, like I am a little bit, and things like that. And they were born in May. They're May 28th. So I think they're still falling to Gemini, don't they, technically? Or so they're technically still Gemini. So all 3 of my daughters are Geminis,
Amazing.
so it could be where the strong presence comes from, though, too, as well, because they are. And it's, you see all their different characteristics of what they say. And it's funny because a lot of them line up with that too, and especially the twins, they're 2 different people. And it's funny because a lot of people always ask, oh, are they identical? I'm like, no, they're not.
No, they might look the same or very similar, but they're very, very
they
different.
don't. Well, as we get started ready to get a wrap up here, Gloria, do you want to let everybody know where they can find you, where they can reach out to you if they'd like to have anything done?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to my website. It's just gloriabattini.com, and you'll find all of the info there. Otherwise, also Gloria Battini on Instagram. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm a teacher on a spiritual app that's called Insight Timer. It's a beautiful app where you can find loads of different teachers, loads of different courses, loads of different meditations. So if you're looking to go onto a spiritual journey, I highly recommend that. If you follow me on the app, we have loads of live events all the time, several times a week, loads of different readings. It's fun. Come and join us.
Oh, well, it sounds awesome, though. Well, I appreciate you coming. This is a great conversation. I really enjoyed having you.
Thank you so
Guys,
much.
guys, you know where to find me on Pete vs. Anxiety and everything. I'm X down to TikTok. I'm Spotify down at iHeartRadio. And as I always say, it costs nothing, absolutely nothing to be kind to somebody. One kind act you can do can save someone's life, or hell, you can make their day. I'm Pete vs. Anxiety signing out saying, hey, don't ask how your day is today. Say, hey, how's my mental health today?